Hello, everyone. Uh, I haven't really made a plan about what I'm going to talk about here. Sorry about my screen reflecting my glasses, um, because I just wanted to kind of thought dump so that I can stop thinking about it, because it does it is one of those things that kind of gnaws at you. Um, Over the last few years, I've been very disappointed by people who I formerly worked with, colleagues from show business have kind of queued up to smear me as a bigot, uh, and basically treat me like a pariah. The latest example of which is Paul Whitehouse and Charlie Higson. Um, hi guys, nice to see Doozer here. Um, they've been doing a tour, a fast show tour recently, and apparently whenever they talk about Ralph and Ted, two characters that Arthur Matthews and I created, they say the same line wherever they go. They say created by Graham and Arthur, or Arthur as we now call them, something like that. So they repeat this line over and over again. I've heard that they said it in Nottingham, in Glasgow, and various other places. Um, what's kind of shocking about this to me is that I never thought Paul Whitehouse and Charlie Higson would be the kind of people to fall for this movement. Um, but, I never thought Bill Bailey would be the kind of person to fall for this movement, or Alexei Sale, who recently did on a podcast, laughed about the fact that I've lost everything because of my stand on this issue, which is, just to remind everyone, I don't believe that males should be in women's spaces. I don't believe they should be cheating in women's sports. And I don't think children should be experimented on in gender clinics. So for this stance, I have been attacked by the aforementioned. I believe Dylan Moran has said something about me. In fact, it'd be easier to list the people who haven't said nasty things about me. Griff Rhys-Jones is probably one of the few. Richard Ayoade, of course, and Jonathan Ross, all of whom have been paying attention to this issue and understand it in a way that Paul Whitehouse and Charlie Higson are very careful not to. And I say very careful not to because the fact that they're still coming out with this line and they're still saying all this stuff about me means that they're deliberately ignoring what the Cass report found. And if I may remind you, hold on a sec, just to summarize them here, I'm getting my Perplexity to help me out. What are the most shocking revelations of the Cass report? Oh, that's funny. Hold on a sec. Okay, sorry. I had to be a bit more specific. So let's list what the Cass review has found. Lack of evidence and data. The Cass review found that the Tavistock Gender Clinic lacked robust data and evidence to support its practices, with the judges expressing surprise at the lack of data the clinic could present to defend its case. Now, let me remind you, the Tavistock was putting children on puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones. Puberty blockers, including Lupron, which was the drug that chemically castrated Alan Turing, given a different name, probably because of that, but it's the same drug. So a few years ago, we had people arguing for Alan Turing to be put on British banknotes, and now we have the same people arguing that these drugs should be given to children. The Cass review also found that ideology was driving the medicine, the protocols that the Tavistock were recommending, and the toxic atmosphere within the Tavistock meant that people could not discuss their worries and their problems with the treatments for fear of being fired. It also found that it was being influenced by gendered intelligence and groups like this, mermaids, heavily ideological, run by people often who are not doctors. And if they do find a doctor, it's usually a very kind of niche one like Helen Weberly, who I believe should be in jail, and who has promised to continue issuing these drugs to children on the black market. There's been a complete disregard for medical ethics. All of these findings by the Cass Review come as no surprise. We've been saying all this stuff for years, and the only thing that's happened recently is that the Cass Review has finally put it down in a way that makes it impossible for the other side to pretend that nothing is happening. So that's what's happening to children. That's what's happening to young people, the kind of young people who read Charlie Higson's young adult novels. And what I can't understand is how anyone can write for children like Charlie and not want to examine this issue extremely carefully and make sure that the things that he's endorsing by having this rehearsed routine line about me in every place they visit, that he would not want to look further into this and to see whether his criticism of me is justified. You know, the thing, I'll give you an example of something that I know that Charlie Higson will go out of his way not to know. Last night, I met Jude, who I've interviewed on here years ago. It might be a bit difficult for me to find it, but I'll dig it out. Jude had a daughter who was told by Australian society, including her teachers, her doctors, everyone apart from her parents, that she was a boy and she should take testosterone so that she could be a real boy. This girl was very mentally troubled. And what doctors did over here in Australia is you're supposed to get a letter of permission from adults to say that you can start on a course of testosterone. The doctors pretended that the parents had given this permission, and they started her on a course. There's been a few times throughout this kind of awful family history that Jude has where the daughters come home and they've tried to kind of get through to her, tried to speak to her, kind of mend bridges with her, and she has just locked herself in the room, terribly depressed. She's had a double mastectomy. I think she's had a hysterectomy. I can't remember exactly whether they said that, but someone last night was talking about a young girl who's had a hysterectomy. And the thing about having a hysterectomy is that it brings on the menopause way too early. So the last time that this young, very troubled girl was home, she spent all her time in a room. She ordered Deliveroo, Eats. All they knew about her being alive was that these deliveries the gate would swing open. They would hear the delivery man leave the food and leave. And then soon after that, she too left. And again, they've lost contact with her. They can't find her. And they have no idea what's happening to this extremely troubled young woman who is their daughter, you know? Now, that is what, and I just want to be very, very clear about this. That is what Paul Whitehouse and Charlie Higson of The Fast Show are endorsing by joining in with this casual smearing of me. You know, none of the people who have condemned me have ever told me what I've done wrong. When Jimmy Mulville of Hat Trick was destroying all hope of the Father Ted musical, I asked him at one point, I said, what have I done wrong? And he rolled his eyes, you know, as if it was self-evident. It's not self-evident. I don't see why it's wrong to fight for young girls like that woman's daughter. Fight for her too, because she spends all her time now writing letters that don't get published by her local newspaper and by bigger newspapers, because like the Guardian, like the Metro, the Independent, the New York Times for years, the Washington Post for years, all of these newspapers have been involved in a conspiracy of silence, perhaps influenced by the same toxicity and fear that was kind of rampant in the Tavistock. These people aren't doing their jobs, quite frankly. And I don't know, maybe Paul and Charlie are the type of people who only read The Guardian, which means that they simply won't know some of this stuff. But I still think that it should have been a casual matter for them to call me or write me a letter, anything, to tell me exactly what I've done wrong, where I've gone wrong. No one ever does. No one ever does. And I'm still considered the bad guy by these people for sharing things like, you know, images of men stealing women's prizes in sport, images of young children who've had double mastectomies before they've even had a chance to know what it is to be an adult. You know, these are basic things. I always just thought these were basic things that any human being would want to stop, would want to fight, but apparently not, you know. And it just keeps growing, this list of people in my old life who are adding to the difficulties I have in making a living by constantly smearing me without actually telling me what I've done wrong. Again, what Charlie Higson, for example, what is wrong with trying to stop these experiments on children? Why are you not curious about it, given that you are a writer of young adult fiction? You know, Bill Bailey did the same thing. Bill Bailey, he said in an interview, because one thing that my former colleagues love doing is, as soon as a journalist asks them a question about me, they can't wait to throw me under the bus. And I would have never have expected it of Bill Bailey. But he said he was baffled by my participation in this debate. And I phoned him and I said, why? Why are you baffled? You know, I said, young girls are being hurt. I said, women are losing their spaces and their language. And he said, he just kept saying, but why did you get into it, Graham? Why did you get into it? You know, I mean, I think Bill Bailey doesn't have a daughter. Maybe that's it. But he's definitely got a mom. How could you want your mom to live in a world where, you know, you might have carers taking care of her and she won't be able to pick a woman to care for her because they'll say, oh, this is a woman, and send a man who looks a bit like a woman, you know? I don't see how anyone could condemn anyone else to that kind of a life. But these men simply don't seem to care about their mothers, you know? Three of my colleagues on the Father Ted musical, Neil Hannon, Arthur Matthews, and Paul Woodfull, all of them have daughters. All of them, you know? And yet they're happy to bring them up in a world where men can take their sports, where men can invade their spaces, where if they go into a changing room and are confronted by a man, if they complain, they are the ones who will get into trouble. I can't understand how they can live like that. I can't understand how they can look their daughters in the face, to be frank. Anyway, don't know what to. I was worried I'd run out of stuff, and of course I have already. That's just basically it, you know. Not a single person has told me what I'm done wrong, what I've done wrong, where my analysis is wrong on this issue. And the reason they haven't is because they don't understand this issue, because they have no curiosity about the women in their lives. They have no empathy for the women who've lost their jobs, who've lost their livelihoods and their social circles for fighting this stuff. They don't care. And you know, I can understand not caring to some extent, but when you're now trying to write me out of the history of the fast show because I stand up for women and girls, then, and boys, of course, they just found out at the Mayo Clinic study just found out that young boys given puberty blockers are getting cancer of the testicles. You know, something I had. It wasn't fun when I had it at 40, at 49 or whatever age I was. You know, how is it for a teenage boy or a young man in his 20s to get this? They don't care about these things for some reason. There's something missing in these men. There really, really is. There's something missing. And I just can't figure out what it is. You know, someone just said they don't want to get cancelled. That's fair enough. But there's a difference between not wanting to get cancelled and going around the country, and every time they mention my name, trying to erase me from my own work, you know, as Charlie Higson and Paul Whitehouse are doing, you know. I mean, Bill Bailey was the same. When someone asked him about me, they could easily have said, I don't want to talk about that, as Chris O'Dowd very, very nicely said in one interview, you know, but they never do. They take the chance to just jump on my neck, you know. And again, none of them will tell me what I've done wrong. None of them will tell me where my analysis is wrong. Just once, I'd like them to actually have the guts to call me and tell me what I've missed on this issue. And I think it really is as simple as this. I think they want to keep going to dinner parties. I know I've said this a lot in the past, but I think that they're mates with people like Jordan Gray, the flasher who sang a song about how women were shit and won awards for it. And Channel 4 said it was a beautiful example of a trans body. The bloke takes estrogen to grow his boobs so he can feel them while masturbating. That's the beauty of the trans body when it comes to Jordan Gray. And exposing himself on stage is exactly the same presentation of a fetish that we saw recently, where I shared oh, what's his name? His name was gone out of my head. Oh, Grayson Perry, who went to a children's cancer charity event and had a black dildo sticking out of his dress, you know? And when he was interviewed about his cross-dressing, he said it arouses him to shock people like that. So he made the conscious decision to wear a black dildo and go to a kids' cancer charity, you know? Like, that's what Jordan Gray is doing. And that's what Eddie Izzard was doing. We all kind of thought with Eddie Izzard, oh, you know, it's so brave. And there was a time when, you know, I just thought, yeah, great. You know, when he said, they're not women's clothes, they're my clothes, you know, and who could argue with that? It seemed like a forward step, right? But then he started going into women's toilets, you know, and as soon as he started doing that, I look back at all those times when he was dressing up in kinky boots, and I realized, oh, he was just pushing his fetish down our throats, you know? The more you find out about autogynephilia, the more you realize where all this stuff is coming from. But these guys just want to keep going to dinner parties with these blokes, you know? Because if they don't, if they say anything other than I'm a bigot multiple times in multiple cities on the Fast Show tour, then they won't get to go to these sweet dinner parties anymore, because all of their middle class friends have a kid who says he's non-binary or a kid who says he's trans, and they are being bamboozled by their idiot kids, you know. Anyway, sorry, I'm going down the rabbit hole a little bit, honestly. Yeah, I see questions. You can ask some questions. I'd be happy to answer some. It'll give me something to it'll give me something to talk about. But yeah, I mean, I've had a kind of a recent like had a kind of recent bunch of people being nice about me though. Kemi Badenoch mentioned me in a piece, which was really nice. Uh, talking about how unfairly I've been treated. But you realize that none of my old friends will see that because they don't read the Times, because they only read the Guardian, and they believe everything the Guardian says. Um, I've always felt that when we get an investigation into this issue, it needs to be very broad. We need to be looking at how the BBC was captured, why the BBC produced I Am Jazz without any investigation into the science behind what they were pushing toward on young children. How did Doctor Who become just a advert for transing kids? Um, Someone says, hi, Graham. You mentioned, sorry, no, sorry, I'm a bit distracted. What was I going to say? Yeah, the investigation. We need to ask why the Guardian, why Kath Viner has kind of watched over the bullying of people like Suzanne Moore out of her job. How did she go? Why was Kath Viner not all over this issue? One thing I think is that the word trans means opposite. So trans woman means man, as we know. Trans man means woman. But also in a world where words mean their opposite, then it becomes impossible for people to do their jobs. Journalists don't tell the truth. Surgeons make people sick. And we need to really look. And the police are arresting the innocent people and ignoring the fetishists and perverts who are making the phone calls. We all know about my experiences with Stephanie Hayden. Who's had three previous names, is a con man from Liverpool who basically owes money to every single person he's ever met. And when people try and come for him for their money, he accuses them of transphobia and puts them through the courts because it's very cheap for him to do so, because I think he's on benefits. He's currently now going for 3 people I know, and there doesn't seem to be any sign of anyone stopping him. This is a criminal who's just basically manipulating the court system. So how come, that's kind of one of the earliest things that happened to me, is the Guardian reported Stephanie Hayden reporting me to the police as if it was proof of my guilt and not proof of him being a vexatious con man, which is what he is. Someone says, are you worried about the new Scottish speech law spreading into Ireland? They're going through weird times right now, and I'm afraid they're vulnerable to this too. It's very funny. This looks like a pompadour. Ireland is very funny at the moment. All I see in my feed are fucking Sinn Féiners talking about how great Iran is. So, they're kind of revealing themselves as a bunch of anti-Semitic. We already knew they're misogynists, but they're anti-Semites as well. They're fucking rabid, and it'll be interesting to see if the hate laws come in and these blokes start being delighted about it, because they're the ones that will be in most danger of being censored. Anyway, sorry. Have you changed your thoughts on Gamergate since being cancelled? Yes, I have. I think I got it wrong. I'm not sure how wrong, but I think I got it fairly wrong. When I was fighting Gamergate, one of the things I was fighting was men pretending to be women and then having what were supposed to be women's opinions, which were also always somehow to men's benefit. The best example of of that is sex work is work. Suddenly all these women are saying it, but they're not really women. They're blokes they're blokes like that fella. I think he's a West Ham supporter, and he sticks things up his arse for money on the internet. You know, that's a sex work is work guy, because, you know, that's his bottom line. Oh, excuse me. But yeah, Gamergate, I think I got it wrong. You know, there was one famous thing I spoke about on another interview recently, the one I just tweeted with Maddie. It was sorry, it's not Maddie's not her name. I've forgotten her name's jumped out of my Melody. But Gamergate had one up, I remember, called Operation Lollipop, where they a lot of 4chaners posed as black women. They all put photographs of black women in their Twitter accounts, and they all tried to make End Father's Day go viral. I think that's what it was, the hashtag. And they all pretended that Father's Day was a racist, colonialist, tradition. And the whole intention of End Father's Day was to create chaos, because they wanted people to believe that black women had suddenly gone crazy and were trying to push this bizarre narrative. Narrative's not the right word, but I'm gonna have to find my plug for the computer in a sec, because it's about to run out. But it wasn't true. It was just a 4chan op, and I remember thinking, this is terrible. This is the worst thing I've ever seen. You know, how dare they? How dare these right-wing bigots do this? But of course, now the left are doing it, and when the left do it, it's suddenly okay. It's suddenly absolutely fine to have opinions that benefit men and pretend that they're coming from women when they're really not, you know? Anyway, listen, I'm just going to find my plug. I won't be a second. You have to be careful when you stand up. You don't reveal something that will have the sad wankers on Cooked and Bombed, who I talked about in my book, looking in the background, looking for something that they can get me with, because they couldn't hack it in comedy. Anyway, there we go. So, what was I saying? Yeah, so Gamergate. So they did this. So that's what I thought. I thought I was defending women when I was fighting against Gamergate, but I now realize that Gamergate might just have been an early sighting of what we're fighting now. You know, what we seem to be fighting now is just a left that driven mad by having no power because of Trump and Brexit, decided to exercise power over their friends and families. You know, the thing of going home at Thanksgiving in America and forcing your family to use they, them pronouns for you. It's just a symptom of insanity, a symptom of powerlessness. And it kind of, yeah, I do play games, a lot of games. I haven't been able to play it because I'm in Australia. I haven't been able to play for a while. But it's just a sign of powerlessness. And the only people they can have power over are people on the left. You know, TERFs are, for the most part, left-wing women, you know, left-wing feminists. So of course they were the main target by these MRAs, you know, men's rights activists who pose as trans rights activists. You say there's a Gamergate 2.0 on now. It's even worse. Oh, hi, Scott. Yeah, can you tell me about that? Send me links, because I'm curious about what's going on. But yeah, I think the when Gamergate was around, first of all, I think I just believed what I was being told, because I did that thing where my feed was feeding stuff back to me that was just propaganda. So I don't know. I hope I don't make a mistake like that again. And I really would like to know exactly what went on. It's a very good book about it called "Kill All Normies" that I recommend everyone reads. which I thought was too, when I read it, I thought it was too easy on the gamergaters, but now I realize it was actually probably just right. Anyway, look, I didn't want to go into things like Gamergate and stuff like that because I really just wanted to talk about how disappointing my colleagues are, why they're doing what they're doing, what is the reason for it, what is the reason for Paul Whitehouse and Charlie Higson saying the same thing in every town, or author as we call them now. What is the reason for it? You know, I don't know. I hope that you can ask them, you know, when you meet them. Charlie Higson, he's on Twitter, so maybe ask him. Maybe if you're in the audience for the Fast Show, maybe ask them there. But yeah, so anyway, that's all I wanted to say. One last question. Graham, has this particular issue opened your eyes to other issues or made you skeptical of anything else you took for granted before? Yes, everything. Absolutely everything. You know, I don't think I'll ever trust a newspaper again, you know, and neither should you, because if they can do this to me, they can do it to you. All right, everyone. Lovely to speak to you all. I have to go to another book launch in Sydney. Yay! So I will see you anon. Bye.